Chapter 2080. I don't know. Could it be a patriarch from some family? The elders of the Xian family were discussing among themselves. In the blink of an eye, two other powerful auras descended. It turned out that the two patriarchs of the Xian family who had been in seclusion all year round had sensed the commotion outside and had come out of seclusion. Seeing the two fighting, the two patriarchs immediately asked what was going on. After hearing the explanation, the two patriarchs were speechless. They exchanged a look and raised their hands in tacit understanding. A green halo spread out from their hands and instantly enveloped the area where Gu Xingyin and Huang Tian were. While stopping the two from causing any damage, it also blocked Gu Xingyin's way of leaving. Gu Xingyin was speechless. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew over her head and her hood fell off. It turned out that when the two patriarchs of the Xian family had set up the barrier, she was distracted for a moment and Qin Yao took the opportunity to pull off the hood on her head. She glared at him angrily. "How dare you?" She raised her head to look at Qin Yao, whose eyes were filled with shock. Originally, Qin Yao had only sensed a powerful person hiding in the dark. When he rejected Huang Bing, for some reason he wanted to tease this person in the dark. That was why Qin Yao had purposely said those words to cover up the misunderstanding when Gu Xingyin was forced down from the tree by him. However, at this moment, seeing Huang Tian's stunning beauty, Qin Yao suddenly had an illusion that it would be a great thing if this person truly belonged to him. The narcissistic ancient Black Fox King expressed that the woman before him was the only person he had met in the thousands of years he had lived in this world who could stand before him without losing her beauty. Even Qin Yao, who was a peerless beauty, felt this way, not to mention the onlookers. When did such a peerless beauty appear in the Tianxian land? If such a person had appeared, it was impossible that they had not heard of her at all. Gu Xingyin sensed those gazes on her and snorted coldly. Her voice seemed to resound in everyone's hearts. It was so deafening that many people immediately came to their senses. It was also at this moment that everyone remembered that the peerless beauty in front of them was an expert who could rival the ancient Black Fox clan leader Qin Yao. Profound sage powerhouse. With this thought in mind, the gazes on Gu Xingyin instantly disappeared. If they really angered a profound sage, even the powerful Xian family would have a headache. When Gu Xingyin saw that the battle had stopped, he glared fiercely at Qin Yao. Without another word, he raised his hand and tore apart the barrier set up by the Xian family's ancestor. His figure flashed and disappeared. "I bear no ill will towards the Xian family." Her ethereal voice came from the horizon. Qin Yao suddenly turned around and smiled at everyone. "I'm sorry, everyone. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." After saying that, with a slight movement of his clothes, he disappeared before everyone's eyes. From the looks of it, he was clearly going to chase after the white-cloaked expert. Everyone then recalled the conversation between the two and the grudges between them, and they all revealed a look of understanding. Patriarch Qin Yao was going to chase after his sweetheart. It was understandable. Huang Bing stood there quietly for a while, then turned around and said goodbye to the elder of the Xian family. At this time, Xian Jing, who was standing behind the elder, stood out with a reluctant look on her face. "Aren't you going to stay for a while?" Chapter 2081. Huang Bing glanced at her but didn't say anything. Unexpectedly, Xian Jing didn't give up and said, "Bing, I know you like clan leader Qin Yao. You must have suffered a big blow after being rejected. You and I have always been good friends. Why don't I be the host and take you around West Wind City to have some fun and relax?" When she said this, everyone also remembered that this young miss of the Huang clan had expressed her feelings to Patriarch Qin Yao in front of everyone just now. It could only be said that the falling flowers were unrequited and the flowing water was heartless. With that thought in mind, the crowd began to look at Huang Bing with a strange expression. Xian Jing patted her worried face, but she was very proud. She was sure that Huang Bing's reputation would be ruined this time. If it was more serious, it would affect her state of mind, which would be very harmful to her future cultivation. Huang Bing kept her eyes fixed on Xian Jing. She had been careful before, and now that she heard such words, which seemed to be caring but were actually hurtful, How could she not understand? She thought that she was a true friend, but who would have thought that she was a black-hearted spider? Huang Bing suddenly laughed. Everyone's attention was drawn to her. They wondered if Huang Bing had suffered a huge blow after being rejected. But Huang Bing laughed and said, "Such a small thing, and you've suffered a big blow. Xian Jing, aren't you underestimating me too much?" Seeing that everyone was looking at her, and Xian Jing was also surprised, Huang Bing's expression was even more indifferent. For martial artists of my generation, love is a small matter. Cultivation is the right way to go. Being rejected this time, I feel that my obsession has been cut off, and my state of mind is clear. Some of the previous cultivation barriers have also been cleared. She looked in the direction that Gu Shengyin and Qin Yao had left, and bowed slightly to show her respect. Then she turned to the elder of the Xian clan and said, "I have a feeling in my heart and am preparing to return to the clan to cultivate, so I came to say goodbye." Everyone saw that her expression was normal, and her eyes were clear. As expected, there was a sign of a breakthrough, and they couldn't help but be amazed. The elder standing in front of Xian Jing didn't hide his admiration at all. "Your state of mind is so open, and you have such talent. Your future is limitless. In that case, I won't keep you any longer." Huang Bing bowed to him and left without looking back. Even without looking, she knew that Xian Jing must be vomiting blood, but she had to hold it in. Thinking about Xian Jing's expression, Huang Bing felt extremely happy. Even the disappointment of being rejected had faded a lot. In the end, her admiration for clan leader Qin Yao was mostly a kind of longing and worship when she saw a beautiful and outstanding member of the opposite sex. Since there was no deep love, being rejected was not a painful thing. Previously, she had thought about why Xian Jing had schemed against her. After thinking about it carefully, she felt that the reason was nothing more than talent. The Phoenix clan and the Xian clan were both first-rate clans. The two of them were of similar age and were both direct descendants of the clan. It could be said that their statuses were similar. However, Huang Bing, who was only 20 this year, was already at the peak of the Mystic Master realm. She was about to break through to the Mystic Monarch realm, while Xian Jing, who was 1 year older than her, had just broken through to the Mystic Master realm. This huge gap was enough to make Ling Xian Jing jealous. Now that she knew the reason, Huang Bing knew how to deal with her better. She didn't even need to lower herself to argue with her. For someone like Xian Jing, if he continued to maintain his cultivation speed and lead by a large margin, it would be the greatest revenge he could give her. Chapter 2082. Let's talk about the other side. Gu Shengyin stopped not far from West Wind City. She leaned against a big tree in the suburbs, slowly calming the internal qi in her body. She also leaned against the tree so that she would not fall down. When she fought with Qin Yao just now, she had extracted too much internal qi from her body. During the fight, she had already discovered that something was wrong, but she suppressed it by force. Now that she relaxed, the sequelae broke out. The entire right side of her body had fallen into a temporary state of unconsciousness. She must find the vermilion bird fire as soon as possible, otherwise the feeling of having a time bomb hidden in her body was really uncomfortable. As she thought of this, her expression suddenly turned cold. Qin Yao had appeared in front of her at some point. "I say, beauty, you are so fast, I almost lost you," he said exaggeratedly. Although he said this, looking at his relaxed expression, she knew that he was exaggerating. The ancient Black Fox clan was good at speed. It was normal for him to be able to keep up with Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin's expression did not change. She said coldly, "What do you want?" Qin Yao seemed a little distressed. He frowned and sighed. "Don't be so nervous, I don't mean any harm." Gu Shengyin, perhaps it was because her performance was too obvious. Although she did not speak, Qin Yao clearly understood what she meant. He furrowed his brows and said, "I just want to be friends with you, beauty." His face was like the dawn of spring. His deliberately sad appearance really made him look pitiful. If it was in normal times, Gu Shengyin might appreciate the beauty. But at this moment, her situation was special and she did not want to be involved with this person. She just said coldly, "I am not interested in being friends with you." Qin Yao seemed to have expected her answer and did not find it strange. My name is Qin Yao. You should tell me your name, right? Gu Xingyin could not wait for him to leave. She frowned and replied, My name is Huang Tian. Huang Tian? This name seemed a little familiar. You are from the Huang clan? Gu Xingyin did not say anything, which could be considered as a tacit agreement. Qin Yao was just asking casually. He didn't really care which clan the other party was from. Gu Xingyin glanced at him. Why aren't you leaving? Qin Yao laughed. Why should I leave? Gu Xingyin closed her eyes and ignored him. However, in the next moment, she felt a warm body approaching her. When he opened his eyes, he was met with Qin Yao's grave and worried expression. What happened to you? Gu Xingyin was shocked. Her face turned cold. What can I do? However, Qin Yao was not frightened by her expression at all. As he reached out to grab Gu Xingyin's right hand, he said, You're obviously not in the right state right now. Otherwise, why would you say so much to me? Wouldn't it be normal for you to attack me directly? Gu Xingyin, you are indeed very self-aware. Qin Yao grabbed her wrist and examined it for a moment. His expression became a little unsightly. What's wrong with your body? He could feel that the Xian qi in her meridians was sluggish. It was obviously very abnormal. She had actually fought with him in such a state just now? Qin Yao was shocked, but at the same time he felt a strange sense of pride. She was indeed the person he liked. Not only was she not inferior to him in terms of beauty, she was also so powerful. Chapter 2083. The hand that was being held happened to be Gu Xingyin's immobile right hand. Therefore, she had no way of breaking free. She could only say coldly, Let go of me. Unfortunately, it would have been better if Qin Yao didn't know about her situation, but at this moment, he was completely aware of her fierce appearance. Hearing Gu Xingyin's words, he only chuckled. I won't let go. He asked, Where are you going? Gu Xingyin was so angry that she didn't want to speak. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, her whole body flipped and she was directly placed on his back. Gu Xingyin. Qin Yao's lips curled. If you don't speak, I'll carry you home. Gu Xingyin. Qin Yao added his previous words. Carry you home to be my fox queen. Gu Xingyin. I'm going to the extreme south to find the vermilion bird fire and refine my body. Qin Yao nodded and without another word, he lifted his feet and walked forward. Gu Xingyin asked, What are you doing? Qin Yao answered matter-of-factly, Taking you to the extreme south. I don't need you to take me there. Qin Yao said with a faint smile, If I hear another word of rejection from you, I'll kiss you. Do you believe me? Gu Xingyin. She remained silent. However, Qin Yao didn't want her to be like this. Along the way, he kept asking Gu Xingyin questions. In the end, Gu Xingyin couldn't take it anymore. What exactly do you want? Qin Yao answered matter-of-factly, I want you to be my fox queen. Of course, such a beautiful and powerful woman was the most suitable for him. Gu Xingyin was silent for a moment, then suddenly asked, You want me to be your fox queen because I'm good-looking and powerful, right? Qin Yao nodded. Gu Xingyin thought to herself, I knew it. In Qin Yao's heart, he didn't have the concept of feelings. Perhaps he was special to her, but this was something that even he himself was unaware of. At this thought, Gu Xingyin suddenly chuckled. Qin Yao, who was carrying her forward, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. He deeply regretted that he was carrying the person on his back. Otherwise, he would be able to see her smile clearly. Just by imagining it, Qin Yao felt that the scene would be especially beautiful. Then, he heard something that made his eyes widen. Unfortunately, I don't want to be your fox queen at all. Qin Yao was somewhat puzzled. He found a clean place and used his profound energy to lay down some clean leaves on the ground. He gently placed Gu Xingyin down on the ground and sat cross-legged in front of her. This was a very serious problem that had to be dealt with seriously. Why? He asked, puzzled. Qin Yao fixed his eyes on Gu Xingyin and said, I'm so good-looking. You can't find a man who is better looking than me among the humans. In terms of strength, you should be able to feel that I have already stepped into the demigod realm. In the entire Tianshan continent, the number of people who have reached my realm can be counted on one hand. He was extremely confident. Overall, if you need a partner, you can't find anyone better than me. Gu Shengyin only said one sentence, but I don't like you. Qin Yao's expression changed. Gu Shengyin looked at him and said with a mocking tone, do you know what it means to like someone? Qin Yao looked at her and said, of course I know. I like you very much. He said it righteously. He felt that he really liked this woman, more than anyone he had met before. However, his words did not move the woman in front of him. Chapter 2084. Gu Shengyin just looked at him. Then if I were to die right now and need you to lose all your power in exchange for my life, would you be willing? Or rather, if you could die in my place, would you be willing? She looked at the black-robed man in front of her. Qin Yao just frowned, a hesitant look on his face. Gu Shengyin didn't say anything, just looked at him. After a while, he seemed to have found the answer. He shook his head at Gu Shengyin and made his choice. I think the assumption you made is meaningless, but if you really want to use it as a reference, I won't. The answer was expected. Gu Shengyin smiled. Qin Yao saw her smile as he wished, and he thought that this smile was as beautiful as he had imagined it to be. Gu Shengyin said, I will. What? Qin Yao only heard the person in front of him say, if I really love him, I will be willing to die for him and do anything for him. When she said this, her eyes looked at Qin Yao, but her gaze seemed to pass through him, looking at something farther away. Qin Yao was a little unhappy. He faintly felt that there really was such a person, and that person was not him. This thought put him in a bad mood. He snorted coldly, and without saying anything, he left with a flick of his sleeves. Gu Shengyin stared at his departing figure, and closed her eyes tiredly. It was good that he left, otherwise she really didn't know how to face this completely unenlightened lover. Moreover, she was more inclined to slowly teach him those things when her injuries were healed, and she was no longer at a disadvantage when facing this person. After resting enough, Gu Shengyin slowly tried to stand up by herself. She still couldn't feel the right side of her body, but with her strength, it wasn't very difficult to maintain movement. Of course, her movement speed couldn't be compared to Qin Yao's. But just as she stood up, she felt a breeze brush past her. Qin Yao stood in front of her with an unhappy face. Why are you standing up? Gu Shengyin was a little surprised. Didn't you? Qin Yao didn't say anything, and carried Gu Shengyin on his back. He said faintly, I said that you are the fox empress that I like, so I naturally have to take you to heal your injuries and bring you back to the island. Gu Shengyin. She simply didn't bother to say anything, and closed her eyes and lay on his back to sleep. The corners of Qin Yao's lips slightly raised, and they rushed towards their destination at a speed that seemed very slow. 2 days later. After passing the mountain in front of us, we will enter the southernmost. Qin Yao looked at the endless mountain range in front of him. Gu Shengyin said, let's find a place to rest first. These 2 days, Qin Yao hadn't slept for 2 days at all. Although profound sages didn't care about sleeping for 2 days, Gu Shengyin didn't want to see him running around like this. Qin Yao thought about it, and the two of them found a small town at the foot of the mountain range. As expected, as soon as the two of them entered the town, they received a baptism of everyone's gazes. The appearance of the two of them was really too outstanding. Qin Yao didn't know what low-key was. The two of them didn't hide anything when they entered the town, so it would be strange if they didn't attract attention. Qin Yao carried Gu Shengyin on his back, found an inn, and booked 2 rooms. Gu Shengyin quietly left the inn. She looked around, and then walked in a certain direction. Where are you going? A voice came from behind her. Gu Shengyin was helpless, but she wasn't surprised that Qin Yao had discovered her. I'm going to kill someone. 5 chapters later. Just 1 more chapter, wait for my life and death speed to come out. Chapter 2085. Yes, Gu Shengyin proposed to come to this town not only because she wanted to let Qin Yao and herself rest. The main reason was that Chen Xiaoxiao was in this town. She could not leave this hidden danger behind. Qin Yao raised his eyebrows in surprise. His aura covered the entire town. Let alone a profound sage, there was not even a mystique venerable. What kind of person was worth a demigod expert who had surpassed the profound sage level to kill him? He asked this question. Gu Xingyi knew this person's character. If she did not say anything, he would probably get in her way. That person almost took my life. She cultivated a secret technique. As long as there is a trace of her flesh left after death, she can borrow it to revive. Qin Yao's aura had already turned cold. Just Gu Xingyi's words of, "that person almost killed me," was enough to make him want to kill that person. Although he did not know what kind of existence could hurt a powerhouse like Huang Tian, he did not know. She would most likely not tell him about this kind of thing, and he would not be nosy enough to ask. He would wait until she was willing to tell him. He asked to go with Gu Xingyi, and Gu Xingyi did not refuse. Chen Xiaoxiao was not sleeping at this time. Because she had to recuperate, her work and rest had been quite regular these days. But tonight she suddenly felt very uneasy. This feeling came out of nowhere, but it also made her tremble with fear. Chen Xiaoxiao hesitated for a moment, then got up from the bed without saying anything. She did not even have time to pack her things and jumped out of the window to leave. She felt that this place was very dangerous. But she could not leave. As soon as she jumped out of the window, she felt that she had fallen into a swamp. His footsteps became heavy, and even his breathing seemed to become extremely sticky. This familiar feeling, she used all her strength to turn around. A figure in white stood quietly behind her. She did not know how long they had been there. Chen Xiaoxiao's eyes suddenly opened. She stared at Gu Xingyi's beautiful and flawless face. She would never forget this face no matter what. It was a face that had caused her to die once. Chen Xiaoxiao opened her mouth but found that she couldn't say anything. Gu Xingyi knew what she wanted to ask, but she didn't want to answer her. It was as if something in the air was being compressed. Chen Xiaoxiao's body began to tremble, and her pupils began to dilate. Slowly, there was no more sound. Only a soft body was left on the ground. Looking at the body on the ground, Gu Xingyi was about to make a move when Qin Yao stopped him. "Let me do it." Suddenly, a cluster of blue flames ignited in his palm. Gu Xingyi was standing right beside him, but she did not feel the heat at all. However, that didn't stop her from seeing the flames clearly. Foxfire. It was rumored that it was like gangrene attached to the bone. Once infected, it could never be removed unless it was burned to ashes. Qin Yao could tell from her expression that she knew what it was. He smiled. "This is the most suitable way to deal with the situation you mentioned." He flicked his finger, and a wisp of blue flame went straight to Chen Xiaoxiao's body on the ground. In an instant, the whole body was surrounded by blue flames. Gu Xingyi stood there until she saw Chen Xiaoxiao's body turn into ashes in front of her. She did not believe that Chen Xiaoxiao had the ability to resurrect again. Chapter 2086. After taking one last look at Chen Xiaoxiao and making sure that there was nothing left of her, Gu Xingyi turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, a hot body came up to her from behind. Qin Yao felt a little wronged. "I did help you, thank you." Gu Xingyi interrupted him. Qin Yao, what he wanted was not a thank you. However, the person in front of him had already left, so he could only follow her. Qin Yao felt that it was a wonderful feeling. He had never had such a feeling before. Since he was a child, he had never experienced the feeling of rejection because of his face. He was always the one who used a faint smile to charm the other person to the point that they couldn't tell north from south. After enjoying the adoring gazes of others, he would use the same affectionate gaze and the same faint and gentle smile to reject the other person without hesitation. However, this time it was completely the other way around. It was the first time that he cared so much about a woman, but this woman didn't understand his feelings at all. She just wanted to get rid of him. Qin Yao couldn't help but touch his face. He wondered if his charm had declined because of his age. Because of this, the next day, when they left the town, Qin Yao used his charm a little. The effect was very obvious. When he left the town, there were many things in his storage ring that were given to him by the young ladies. There were handkerchiefs and food. The ancient Silver Fox King was satisfied. At the same time, He came to a conclusion that it was not that his charm had declined. It was that Huang Tian was too indifferent. Gu Shengyin sneered in his heart as he watched the male fox who was about to spread his tail out smugly outside. Since you like to attract women so much, you can attract as much as you want. The two continued to go deep into the mountains. In the past 2 days, because the numbness in Gu Shengyin gradually disappeared, she refused Qin Yao's idea of carrying her on his back and walked on her own. Qin Yao snorted, "You don't know how lucky you are. Many women want to touch me, but I won't let them." "Only you," Gu Shengyin glanced at him and replied, "Then do you know how many men want to touch me? What have they become now?" When Qin Yao heard this, he subconsciously felt that something was wrong, but he still asked, "How is it?" Gu Shengyin sneered, "I'm afraid you won't even be able to find his grave." "Qin Yao," he said calmly, "you must be lying to me." He could clearly see the woman in front of him. She didn't look like someone who would kill the innocent. Gu Shengyin said calmly, "What I said is true. It's up to you to believe it or not." She really wasn't lying. With Huang Tian's charm back then, there were countless people who admired her and wanted to get close to her. Now that thousands of years had passed, wouldn't those people from back then have long been buried in the endless passage of time? Even their names had been hidden in the depths of time. Who would still remember where their tombstones were? Seeing Qin Yao's somewhat suspicious and subtle expression, Gu Shengyin laughed inwardly. "If I don't scare you, do you really think I'm a pushover?" However, she seemed to have completely underestimated Qin Yao's persistence in her. Even when he heard her threatening words, Qin Yao's expression only changed for a short time. He had returned to normal before night fell. Chapter 2087. There were countless dangers hidden in the mountains which were rarely seen by humans. Qin Yao released the aura of the ancient mystic fox, and those demons who had a certain level of intelligence did not dare to come forward to court death. Only those uncivilized beasts, who could not sense the danger of the person in front of them, would naively think that it was a feast falling from the sky. Of course, these beasts were all killed by Qin Yao in the end and became a feast for him and Gu Shengyin. During this period of time, Qin Yao was the one who prepared the food to fill their stomachs. Speaking of which, he felt strange. As the king of the ancient mystic fox clan, he had always been served by others. When had he ever done his best to take care of others? If someone had told Qin Yao that one day he would wash his hands and make soup for a woman, he would have thrown fox fire at him without hesitation to wash his head. But now, he did it so naturally that he did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. Gu Shengyin sat quietly on the side and watched the man put some fresh mushrooms into the meat soup to make it taste better. To be honest, Qin Yao had made it very obvious. Even Gu Shengyin could see that he had fallen in love with her. Otherwise, if you ask him to change to another person, see if he would do all this for another person? However, this man always thought that he was only interested in Gu Shengyin's powerful strength and beautiful appearance. Since he thought so, let him be. It was rare for Gu Shengyin to have some bad thoughts. She wanted to see when this man would realize her true feelings. Both of them walked very fast. After another day, they had completely entered the southernmost land. As soon as they got out of the mountains, Gu Shengyin felt a wave of heat blowing on her face. It was said that the southernmost land was once the place where the divine beast vermilion bird died. Therefore, it was hot all year round and there was endless magma. The vermilion bird fire that Gu Shengyin was looking for was actually a small fire pool. At first glance, the fire pool did not look very different from magma. However, if one looked carefully, one would find that although there were raging flames in the pool, the water underground was still clear. The fire burned in the water and fire reached a perfect harmony. In the entire Tianshan land, only the vermilion bird fire in the extreme south could do it. Of course, most people wouldn't be able to withstand the temperature of the vermilion bird flames. If it was an ordinary person or a martial artist who was not strong enough, the vermilion bird fire would have turned them into ashes. Only a demigod like Gu Shengyin would be bold enough to use the vermilion bird's flames to cleanse her body. She glanced at Qin Yao. Qin Yao understood what she meant. "I'll be waiting for you not far away. If there's anything, remember to let me know." Qin Yao was a little worried and reminded her. Gu Xingyin nodded. Seeing Qing Yao's figure disappear behind the rock, Gu Xingyin made sure that there was no one else around. Her hands moved slightly. The clothes on his body instantly slid down. Naked, she slowly walked into the vermilion bird fire pond. The body of a demigod was almost invulnerable to swords and spears. Ordinary water and fire could not penetrate it. However, when Gu Xingyin put her feet in, she felt a scorching temperature. This was only the beginning. She gritted her teeth and slowly allowed her entire body to sink into it. Her body shuddered violently, and it was as if all of the vermilion bird flames in the fire pond had found their target and were rushing toward her body in a frenzy. Chapter 2088. Even with Gu Xingyin's endurance, she couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. It was too painful. It was as if there were countless tongues of fire drilling into every part of her body, gnawing away at every part of her body. The pain was extreme. But in this extreme pain, there was another feeling faintly mixed in. Ever since she woke up, Gu Xingyin could feel that her body wasn't completely under her control. This was the aftereffect of thousands of years of deep sleep. Her flesh and bones had deteriorated, and a considerable part of it had even become useless. And these flames, while wreaking havoc in Gu Xingyin's body, were also devouring the deteriorated flesh and blood. Gu Xingyin could very clearly feel that as time slowly passed, the temperature in her body was gradually rising, especially the right side of her body, which had already begun to slowly regain consciousness. But it was also more painful. Cold sweat dripped down along her fair forehead. Gu Xingyin couldn't think clearly, and she didn't know how long this torturous torture would continue for. A rustling sound suddenly entered her ears. Gu Xingyin's originally somewhat tired mind suddenly sobered up, and she sharply looked ahead. A small dark red snake was wriggling in her direction. Gu Xingyin, it was really a case of when it rains, it pours. At this moment, she couldn't divert her attention to deal with this little fellow. To be fair, Gu Xingyin wasn't afraid of snakes. This snake wasn't ugly either, and its entire body was exquisite. The blood-like color of its scales even had a jade-like luster. Gu Xingyin quickly knew what this thing was. Rock snake, a low-level demonic beast, was considered a specialty of the extreme south, and was a rare demonic beast that could survive in this high temperature. Gu Xingyin didn't move, and watched as the rock snake slowly slithered towards the vermilion bird fire pool she was in. It stopped at the edge of the fire pool and obviously noticed Gu Xingyin. The man and the snake stared at each other. After a while, Rock Snake actually probed his head down slowly. Gu Xingyin, she thought for a moment and blew on it. The snake was instantly blown away like a gust of wind. No one knew where it went. Gu Xingyin heaved a sigh of relief. Although she was not afraid of this thing, she felt a little disgusted at the sight of this coiled, soft thing. However, the next moment she felt something biting her arm. Gu Xingyin lowered her head and saw a small green snake. What the hell? This snake had obviously just snuck in from the back. Gu Xingyin was completely focused on the vermilion bird fire pond and didn't notice it. This snake was obviously not the same species as the rock snake. Gu Xingyin glanced at it, but could not recognize what it was. She didn't feel any pain on her arm. Obviously, Gu Xingyin's skin couldn't be bitten by this kind of low-level demonic beast. What surprised her was that before she could do anything, the snake suddenly turned into a stream of green water and blended into the vermilion bird fire pool. Gu Xingyin? She hurriedly called the system. What's going on? Could he still soak in this vermilion bird fire pond that had been spiked? Actually, Gu Xingyin didn't need to say anything. The system was already checking the information. Host, don't worry, this is not a real demonic beast. The system comforted Gu Xingyin. This small green snake that was cut off by the vermilion bird fire should be a plant that grows in the extreme south, jade grass. Chapter 2089. Qing Yao was suddenly enlightened. So it turned out to be like this. She had a different place in his heart compared to others. He liked her. Gu Xingyin, who was rushing back to the Phoenix clan, didn't expect that Qing Yao would actually lie naked on the ground in the extreme south and come to terms with his feelings. She still remembered what she had promised Huang He. After recovering from her injuries, she would return to the clan and officially announce Huang Tian's return. Huang Tian's lifelong dream was to protect the entire Phoenix clan. Gu Shengyin would naturally continue this dream. As long as Huang Tian was alive, the Phoenix clan would also be alive. However, before Gu Shengyin could rush back, the ancestral Phoenix token in her hand suddenly lit up. Ancestor Huang He's voice sounded. "Aunt, the clan is in trouble." This short sentence caused Gu Shengyin's heart to tremble. Who was Huang He? He was a dignified, profound sage powerhouse, an existence at the peak of the entire profound sky continent. What kind of enemy could make him so panicked? What kind of existence was it? Gu Shengyin didn't think too much about it. She raised her speed to the limit and rushed toward the Phoenix clan. At the same time, she called out the system that was in hibernation. "System, help me check what happened to the Phoenix clan." The system quickly gave an answer. The Yin family, which has always been at odds with the Phoenix clan, joined forces with several other clans and suddenly launched a sneak attack on the Phoenix clan. Sneak attack? Gu Shengyin frowned. This kind of thing was somewhat unusual. After all, the Phoenix clan had profound sages. Unless the other party was confident that they could keep the two profound sages of the Phoenix clan here today, the revenge of the two profound sages couldn't be underestimated, no matter what kind of clan it was. However, when the system reported the clans that had cooperated with the Yin family, Gu Shengyin fell silent. Those clans were all well known in the profound sky continent for their intelligence. Even if they couldn't compare to the Phoenix clan and the Yin clan, they still had at least one profound sage powerhouse overseeing them. Otherwise, the Yin family wouldn't have put them in their eyes. Then there was an even bigger problem. What was it that was worth them taking such a huge risk? For example, the Phoenix clan was a large clan that had lasted for tens of thousands of years. Their in-laws were spread throughout the entire continent, and most of the clan's disciples were not in the clan. Leaving aside whether they could succeed or not, even if they succeeded, what they would have to face next would be the frenzied retaliation of the surviving members of the Phoenix clan. Since they made such a plan, they must be certain that the things they obtained from the Phoenix clan would be sufficient to make up for all the losses they might face. What was it? For this reason, the system indicated that it could not find out either. Gu Shengyin did not delay and rushed over to the Phoenix clan. At the same time, within the Phoenix clan, the magnificent courtyard had long been reduced to a mess. With Huang He in the lead, the two profound sages of the Phoenix clan protected their clansmen behind them as they angrily looked at the people in front of them. Behind them was the sacred ground of the Phoenix clan. There was no path of retreat. And in front of them, there were enemies eyeing them covetously. Ancestor Huang He's expression was gloomy. "Yin Jiao, why did you bring these people to ambush my Huang clan?" Although he was angry, he was also puzzled in his heart. The Phoenix clan had always been low-key. Although they couldn't stand the overbearing and flamboyant behavior of the Yin clan, both sides had always minded their own business and didn't have any deep hatred. Chapter 2090. The Yin clan's sudden move had caught them off guard. Of course, he had asked this question to stall for time. Yin Jiao, the patriarch of the Yin clan, smiled sinisterly when he heard these words. "I know you are stalling for time, Senior Huang He." Although he was smiling, his expression was full of malice. "In terms of seniority, I have to call you senior. Since you have doubts, I should naturally answer them." He extended his hand and pointed at the Holy Land behind the Phoenix clan. "Senior Huang He, why don't you tell us, what kind of secret is hidden in the Holy Land behind us?" Another profound sage of the Phoenix clan next to Huang He had an angry expression. "The Holy Land of the Phoenix clan enshrines the heroic spirits of our ancestors. Why are you asking this?" Yin Jiao had an indescribable expression when he heard this. "I received news that there is a secret to breaking into the profound sage realm hidden in the Phoenix clan's Holy Land." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone of the Phoenix clan was stunned. Huang He glanced at the expression of Yin Jiao and his descendants. Inwardly, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly laughed. So, this is the reason you launched a sneak attack on my Phoenix clan? Yin Jiao did not speak, but the expression on his face had already explained everything. Wang He laughed. In any case, you are all top figures in the Tianxian continent. Why don't you use your brains and think that if my Phoenix clan truly had such a secret, would it be your turn to look for it? Would there not be a single elite warrior of the divine realm that broke into the profound sage realm in my Phoenix clan? Being ridiculed by him in such a blatant manner, the expressions of the group of elite warriors became somewhat unsightly. However, Yin Jiao still smiled sinisterly. Whether it is true or not, we will know when we go in and investigate. As soon as he said these words, the previously hesitant expressions of the people instantly turned serious. Huang He's expression sank when he saw this. He said coldly, "It seems that today, you all truly do not plan to be kind? You all have to think, even if today, all the disciples of the Phoenix clan have fallen here. My Phoenix clan still has many disciples in other places. You all have families. Are you not afraid that your families will not have peace in the future?" Yin Jiao smiled coldly. "Thus, today, we will kill all of the people here." He glanced at the members of the Phoenix clan behind Huang He. "As long as we don't leave anyone alive, who would know how your entire Phoenix clan died?" "What arrogance!" A cold female voice suddenly came from the sky. At the same time, a terrifying aura descended from the sky, pressing down on the crowd. This might was clearly only targeted at the people Yin Jiao had brought with him. The members of the Phoenix clan did not sense anything wrong at all. A hint of joy appeared on Huang He's face. Yin Jiao's expression changed. He could sense that the enormous pressure had landed on his body, and even the circulation of the mystic qi in his body had become sluggish. In midair, a white figure walked towards the crowd step by step. It was clear that there was nothing beneath her feet, but this white-robed woman seemed to be stepping on some invisible staircase. Step by step, she descended and arrived in front of the Phoenix clan. Stepping on the void was the symbol of a profound sage powerhouse. Seeing that Gu Shengyin was suppressing several profound sages with her aura alone, Ancestor Huang He's face was filled with excitement. "Aunt Huang Tian." He took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully to Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin waved at him and turned to look at the people in front of her, who were drenched in cold sweat. "Just now, I heard that you all want to kill all the members of my Phoenix clan here today." Chapter 2091. Yin Jiao's expression was very unsightly. As one of the top clans of the profound sky continent, everyone had a clear understanding of each other's strength. He was very sure that the Phoenix clan only had 2 profound sages. However, when did Ancestor Huang He's aunt appear? Who was Ancestor Huang He? She was an old monster who had lived for thousands of years. In front of Ancestor Huang He, even Yin Jiao and the other profound sages around him could only be regarded as juniors. If Ancestor Huang He was serious about calling her that, Yin Jiao only felt a chill rise from his chest. Just how old was this mysterious white-robed woman? He squeezed out a smile. "May I know who this senior is?" Gu Shengyin did not speak, but Ancestor Huang He, who was standing beside her, had already spoken for her. "Haven't you always been curious about what is in the holy land of our clan? I will tell you now. All these years, my Aunt Huang Tian has been in seclusion in the holy land." He sneered. "What breaking through to the profound sage realm? It's just a rumor." In the end, he was careful and did not say what Huang Tian had been doing for thousands of years. He only said that she was in seclusion. However, this was enough to shock Yin Jiao and the others. Yin Jiao felt the huge power that fell on his body and thought about how to resolve the situation in front of him. Gu Shengyin only glanced at them indifferently, and everyone felt a chill run down their spines. "You still haven't answered me? How do you want to leave all of my clansmen here?" No joy or anger could be heard from her tone, but everyone could feel the killing intent coming from her body. Yin Jiao was somewhat speechless. If it had just been an ordinary profound sage, they might have been able to resist the other party by relying on their numbers. But now? Standing in front of them was a woman who had lived for an unknown number of years and could suppress 5 profound sages by herself. Yin Jiao even suspected that this woman, who was said to be Ancestor Huang He's aunt, had already surpassed the profound sage realm and stepped into the legendary realm. The legendary realm. Thinking of this possibility, Yin Jiao sucked in a breath of cold air. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Senior, this is actually just a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? Gu Shengyin snorted coldly with a faint smile on her face. Her words were like a heavy blow to everyone's heart. She took 3 steps forward, and with each step, the pressure that fell on everyone's body seemed to increase by a bit. By the time he reached the 3rd step, apart from the few profound sages, the rest of the people who had followed Yin Jiao had already been pressed down to the point of bending down. There were even some with weaker cultivations who directly knelt in front of the Phoenix clan members. The members of the Phoenix clan standing behind Gu Shengyin all had happy expressions on their faces. These people were so arrogant when they faced them earlier. Now, they were suppressed to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. It was so ironic. The Yin family, the Chen family, the Shengguan family, the Yen family. Gu Shengyin pointed out the families of the profound sages one by one. "Tell me, do you think I can kill all of you here today?" As soon as she said this, the faces of the people in front of her turned pale. Yin Jiao reluctantly said, "If we all die in the Phoenix clan, it will be difficult for your Phoenix clan to explain to the other families of the continent." "Explain?" Gu Shengyin suddenly laughed. "With me, Huang Tian, here, why would my Phoenix clan need to explain to others?" Chapter 2092. The clansmen of the Phoenix clan behind her did not feel much, but they felt that the words spoken by this unknown ancestor made their hearts sway. Only Ancestor Huang He's entire body shook when he heard these words. The eyes of the 1,000-year-old ancestor almost turned red in front of everyone. This was because only he had experienced the most glorious era of the Phoenix clan. At that time, the Phoenix clan was the #1 clan in the profound sky continent. Wherever the disciples of the Phoenix clan went, there was no one who did not worship and respect them. However, their glory was not permanent. After thousands of years, although the current Phoenix clan relied on 2 profound sages and was still ranked among the first-rate clans, they were no longer as powerful as they were in the past. Otherwise, how could clans like the Yin clan and Shengguan clan have the guts to scheme against the Phoenix clan? He looked at his aunt, who could be considered a legendary figure during the most glorious period of the Phoenix clan, with a burning gaze, and a lofty feeling suddenly appeared in his heart. The morale of the clansmen of the Phoenix clan was greatly boosted by Gu Shengyin's words, but the expressions of the clansmen of the other clans directly changed. From Gu Shengyin's tone, there was no possibility of reconciliation at all. Yin Jiao turned his head and looked at the others, nodding to each other without leaving a trace. Since there was no way to coexist harmoniously, then, attack! Yin Jiao shouted, and the profound qi on their bodies surged, forcibly breaking through the pressure brought about by Gu Shengyin's domain and attacking her. Gu Shengyin sneered. She had long seen through the nature of these people and knew that they would most likely choose to fight to the death if they did not agree. She blocked Ancestor Huang He and Yin Jiao, who were about to step forward to help. A white light flashed in her left hand, and a simple longbow appeared in her hand. As soon as this longbow appeared, a terrifying aura was instantly emitted from it. The pupils of Yin Jiao and the others shrank. "This is..." Ancestor Huang He's expression shook. "The most precious treasure of my Phoenix clan, the ancestral divine artifact, the ancestral Phoenix bow." Gu Shengyin's figure rose from the ground, and she looked down at the 5 profound sages below. She placed her right hand on the bowstring, and 5 flame-like arrows suddenly appeared on the originally empty bowstring. Yin Jiao and the others only felt that something extremely terrifying seemed to be staring at them. Yin Jiao was the first to react. "Not good, retreat quickly." "Retreat? Could they retreat?" Gu Shengyin sneered. "I, Huang Tian, am not dead yet. The Huang clan is not a place for you to be impudent." "I, Huang Tian, am not dead yet. The Huang clan is not a place for you to act impudently." I, Huang Tian, am not dead yet. The Huang clan is not a place for you to act impudently. I, Huang Tian, am not dead yet. The Huang clan is not a place for you to act impudently. Almost at this moment, the cold female voice spread across the entire Tianxian land. The entire continent was shaken. At the same time, Gu Shengyin loosened the bowstring on her right hand. 5 meteor-like arrows with bright light and the power to cut through space instantly caught up with the 5 rapidly retreating profound sages. Bang! There was a loud bang and a huge light appeared. When everything was over, seeing that Gu Shengyin did not move, Ancestor Huang He and another profound sage of the Huang clan rushed to the place where the 5 profound sages had been. In a short while, the 2 of them returned. However, the shock and absent-mindedness on their faces could not be concealed. 1 move. 5 arrows. Of the 5 profound sages, 4 were dead and 1 was injured. Gu Shengyin looked at the half-dead Yin Jiao, who was being dragged by Ancestor Huang He, with some surprise. She did not expect that he would still be alive after receiving her all-out attack. However, it did not matter if he was alive. She indifferently ordered, "Cripple him and hang him outside the Huang clan's mansion. Let everyone open their eyes and see the consequences of angering the Huang clan." Today's update was complete. I feel great about myself. Quickly give me a vote to praise me, carrot o carrot. Chapter 2093. Huang Bing stood behind Gu Shengyin. Like many other young clansmen, she had been protected by the elders with high cultivation when the enemy had attacked. At this moment, she was standing among a group of clansmen in a daze, looking at Gu Shengyin, who was standing beside her 2 ancestors with a cold expression. Looking at her appearance and listening to her voice and tone, Huang Bing had long recognized her. She was the senior who had come to find her when she was in the Xian family. At that time, she was just curious that this unknown senior had the ancestral phoenix token. Only now did she know that there was such a powerful ancestor hidden in the Phoenix clan. When she saw Ancestor Huang Tian's true appearance, Huang Bing's first reaction was to feel ashamed of her inferiority. She had always been proud of her own appearance. In the Tianxian land, she could be considered one of the top beauties. However, when she saw Ancestor Huang Tian without a hood, she felt for the first time what it meant to have a peerless appearance. It was no wonder that Patriarch Qin Yao, who had always been arrogant, would fall in love with her. However, this kind of emotion only flashed for a short moment. In the face of the life and death of the clan, personal relationships were instantly insignificant. At that time, Huang Bing looked at the foreign clansmen who were eyeing them covetously and thought that if she really couldn't escape this time, even if she died, she would drag a few of them down with her. Then, Huang Tian made his move. It was like a magnificent and shocking solo performance. Huang Bing looked at this person with wide eyes. 1 person, 1 bow, and 5 arrows. In just 1 move, she killed all the profound sages who were enough to threaten the safety of the entire Phoenix clan. Looking at the white-robed woman who still had an indifferent expression after killing 4 profound sages, Huang Bing felt her heart beating very fast, and the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. Too cool. I hope that I can also become such a woman in my lifetime. She opened her eyes wide and looked at Gu Shengyin, who was giving instructions on how to deal with the aftermath. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel agitated and was about to step forward. Suddenly, another powerful pressure pressed down on the Phoenix clan. Ancestor Huang He and the other profound sage standing next to Gu Shengyin instantly reacted and took defensive stances. Could it be that the people from those clans had helpers? Gu Shengyin's expression did not change. Soon, a black-robed figure flew across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Like a gentle but swift wind, he quickly landed in front of Gu Shengyin. "Are you all right?" Qin Yao's expression still carried a trace of worry. He scanned his surroundings and reached out to hold Gu Shengyin's hand. He carefully examined her body and found that there was nothing wrong with her. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Ancestor Huang He and the other profound sage standing on the side had strange expressions on their faces. When they saw someone rushing over at that speed, they thought it was an enemy attack. Just as they were about to stop the person, they heard Gu Shengyin say, "Don't worry, it's not an enemy." Then, they watched as the handsome man in black hurried to Huang Tian's side. He held Huang Tian's hand as if he was an outsider, as if he was checking on the situation. The important thing was that Senior Huang Tian didn't refuse. Not to mention others, even ancestor Huang He, who had a very close blood relationship with Huang Tian, maintained enough respect and distance when facing this aunt who was calm and indifferent to everything. Chapter 2094. This was because everyone could feel that Senior Huang Tian's personality was rather cold. Coupled with her cultivation and backup, she subconsciously isolated herself from the rest of the people. Ordinary people really did not have the guts to get close to her. This black-robed man? Ancestor Huang He and the other profound sage looked at each other. They both felt as if they had discovered something incredible. Gu Shengyin allowed Qin Yao to carefully examine her before replying, "I'm fine." Qin Yao finally relaxed at this moment. Only the heavens knew how anxious he had been when he heard Gu Shengyin's words on the way here. After interacting with Huang Tian for so many days, he was clear about her personality. No matter how cold she was, she could not restrain herself. To be able to force her to say such words, what exactly did the other party do? Qin Yao did not care what the other party's motive was. The only thing he was afraid of was that Gu Shengyin would be hurt. His rationality told him that with Huang Tian's cultivation, almost no one in the profound sky continent could do anything to her. However, once a person fell in love, things related to their lover could not be controlled by reason alone. Qin Yao seemed to have used the fastest speed in his entire life to rush towards the Phoenix clan. The two of them said a few more words. Qin Yao did not hide the worry on his face and the affection in his eyes at all. In the eyes of others, the two of them were graceful and elegant, and their actions were extremely intimate. It was as if they were a match made in heaven. Only Huang Bing felt a little complicated at this moment. Logically speaking, as someone who had been in love with Qin Yao not long ago and had been dejected after her confession was rejected, she should have felt uncomfortable seeing him being intimate with another woman. She was indeed feeling a little uncomfortable now. However, it was not towards Gu Shengyin, who had snatched away her sweetheart, but towards Qin Yao, whom she had admired before. She felt that no one in the profound sky continent was worthy of such a powerful and beautiful person like ancestor Huang Tian, even if it was Patriarch Qin Yao, whom she had liked before. When Huang Bing had admired her before, she had only thought that she was good in every way. However, now that she was standing next to Gu Shengyin, she could not help but start to pick on her. His appearance was too eye-catching and he always attracted bees and butterflies. He would probably bring a lot of trouble to Patriarch Huang Tian in the future. He couldn't tell how strong he was, but he didn't think he was much stronger than old ancestor Huang Tian. He might even need old ancestor Huang Tian to protect him. It was said that the ancient Sky Fox clan was arrogant and didn't know how to be considerate. There should be someone by ancestor Huang Tian's side who was considerate. Qin Yao was talking to Gu Shengyin about something when he suddenly felt a gaze fall on him. He turned around and saw a beautiful woman in yellow clothes looking at him with a complicated expression. Qin Yao's memory wasn't bad. He naturally remembered that he had just rejected this girl not long ago. Right? She seemed to have said that she was a direct descendant of the Phoenix clan. The worst thing was, Huang Tian had been watching from the tree when he had confessed to her. Looking at her now, could it be that she still couldn't forget about him? Qin Yao turned around and met Gu Shengyin's half-smiling gaze. He could not help but have a headache. Why did he used to think that being admired was a pleasurable thing? How should he explain this? Chapter 2095. Gu Shengyin noticed Huang Bing's gaze, of course. With the strength of a demigod's divine soul, they could sense any changes in their surroundings instantly. Not to mention Huang Bing's gaze. Qin Yao immediately expressed his stance. Other than you, I've never been intimate with anyone of the opposite sex. Gu Shengyin still didn't say anything. She just looked at him coldly. Qin Yao continued, not in the future either. Seeing that Gu Shengyin still didn't say anything, Qin Yao looked like he was going to say something. Patriarch Huang, he coughed softly. He looked at Gu Xingyin. Aunt Huang Tian, you must be tired. Why don't you take a rest first? Leave this to us. The juniors behind them were still watching. Gu Xingyin nodded and left first. Qin Yao naturally hurried to leave as well. It was a good choice to go to a secluded place and talk things out. Gu Xingyin's courtyard had been meticulously decorated by Patriarch Huang He personally. The environment was very elegant. As soon as she entered, she felt a pair of arms around her waist. Qin Yao maintained his position of hugging her from behind. He gently leaned his head against her neck. Huang Qin Yao can swear that other than you, I've never touched any other woman. He was a little nervous as he waited for Gu Xingyin's response. Feeling the strength around her waist increase, Gu Xingyin found it funny, but her expression didn't change. Oh, what did that mean? Qin Yao suddenly didn't know what to do. He was never a clumsy man. If he wanted to, he could easily make a girl smile with a few words. However, those were just unimportant people. In front of Huang Tian, he felt that all the skills he'd mastered to coax people in the past had disappeared. He was willing to open up his truest self to her. Perhaps this was what it meant to care. As Qin Yao thought about it, he hugged the person in his arms even more tightly. There was a hint of grievance in his voice. I want to marry you and make you my fox queen. I like you. I want you to give birth to my fox babies. It's all true. Gu Xingyin responded this time. She said, I believe what you said is true. Qin Yao's face lit up. Gu Xingyin's tone changed. But that doesn't mean that I also like you. I'm also willing to be your fox queen and even give birth to some fox babies for you. Qin Yao was stunned. Gu Xingyin said, Look, there were so many girls who liked you in the past. Their love was real, but would you choose to be with them because they really liked you? Qin Yao remained silent. Although Gu Xingyin said it very casually, he still heard the hidden meaning. At the end of the day, it was all his fault. The Black Fox monarch had already begun to reflect on his own problems. He could not show any signs of fear on his face. He said to Gu Xingyin, I believe that in the profound sky continent, you and I are the most compatible. He only had one request for Gu Xingyin. Wait for me, Huang Tian. If you don't believe in my past, you can prove it with time. I can wait. I can wait for you to see my sincerity with your own eyes. At this point, Gu Xingyin felt that it was enough. She nodded, indicating that she accepted the proposal. Qin Yao smiled. Since she agreed, it meant that he was not completely ignored in her heart. As long as she had feelings for him, he was confident that one day, she would truly accept him. Chapter 2096. Apart from the two of them, no one else knew what the current relationship between Qin Yao and Gu Xingyin was. Or perhaps it was because Qin Yao appeared too intimate and natural in front of outsiders, but most people thought that the two of them were a pair of lovers who were extremely compatible. Gu Xingyin didn't expose his thoughts and let others misunderstand. Qin Yao stayed in the Phoenix clan just like that. From the second day after Gu Xingyin's return, people began to come to the Phoenix clan one after another. Old ancestor Huang he had originally planned to find a time to officially announce Gu Xingyin's return to the outside world. Now that Gu Xingyin had made this move, it couldn't be better. There was no more shocking way to make an appearance than killing 4 profound sages in one move. The families that had been invited also gave the Phoenix clan extra face. On one hand, they were very curious about this mysterious powerhouse. On the other hand, the strength that Gu Xingyin had shown was worthy of being treated with caution by any family. 3 days later, Gu Xingyin, dressed in the great sage robe of the Phoenix clan, walked out step by step in front of everyone's eyes. She didn't hide her aura at all. This was a kind of deterrence, as well as a declaration of her strength. Feeling the steady and dignified aura emanating from her body, the representatives of the major families that had come to participate in this convention all showed dignified expressions. Although they had heard about her reputation of killing 4 profound sages in one move, the difference between hearing about it and personally experiencing it was undoubtedly huge. Gu Xingyin, who was standing on the high platform, lowered her eyes and looked around. Seeing the expressions of those people, The corners of her mouth raised into a satisfied smile. Very good. Qing Yao looked at the woman on the high platform, whose clothes fluttered in the wind as she enjoyed the worship of everyone's eyes, and a feeling of pride suddenly welled up in his heart. This was the woman he had fallen in love with. She was beautiful, powerful, and so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at her. But only in front of him would she show a different kind of beauty. After this day, Huang Tian's name was known by the entire continent. It was rumored that she was the most beautiful woman in the entire profound sky continent. Many self-proclaimed romantic young masters had purposely gone to places near the Phoenix clan, hoping to catch a glimpse of the beauty's face. It was rumored that her cultivation had long surpassed the profound sage realm and entered a higher realm. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for her to suppress 5 profound sages with one move. It was rumored that she had lived for an unknown number of years. Even ancestor Huang He, who had been in the Phoenix clan for thousands of years, had to respectfully address her as aunt. It was rumored that, regarding this name, there were too many rumors in the Tianxian land. And now Gu Xingyin, who was worshipped by countless young people and regarded as their lifelong goal, had a huge problem. She was pregnant. No one had expected that she would be pregnant with the bloodline of the ancient Sky Fox clan after such an accident. Gu Xingyin was a little worried. She originally didn't intend to let Qing Yao go so quickly. Although this guy had been behaving quite well during this period of time, as if he had found his true love and had kept himself clean and didn't play around anymore. But now it was impossible. Even if it was for the sake of the baby in her belly, Gu Xingyin had to suppress Qing Yao and quickly settle the relationship between the two of them. She didn't want the child in her belly to be born without a proper name. So she called Qing Yao over. Chapter 2097. Qing Yao, who was called out, was flattered. During this period of time, he had always been the one who took the initiative to be enthusiastic, while Gu Xingyin's reaction had always been indifferent. It was rare that she actually took the initiative to look for him this time. Qing Yao entered Gu Xingyin's courtyard with a face full of smiles. Then he heard a piece of news that made him dumbfounded. In my stomach, there is an extra seed of yours. Qing Yao felt that he could understand every single word that Gu Xingyin said, but when they were put together, the meaning was somewhat unclear to him. He was in a daze for a while before he woke up from that hazy state. He looked at Gu Xingyin with wild joy. You are pregnant? One must know that in the demon clan, the more noble the bloodline, the harder it was to have children. It was the same in the human clan. The higher the cultivation of the parents, the harder it was to have children. For strong cultivators in the demigod realm like Gu Xingyin and Qing Yao, the possibility of being able to raise a child was almost negligible. But he got it on the first try. In his joy, Qing Yao did not care whether Gu Xingyin's attitude was cold or not. He directly ran over and pulled Gu Xingyin into his arms, hugging her and spinning her in circles in the courtyard. I am really too happy. He pressed his forehead against Gu Xingyin's forehead, his eyes sparkling. What do you think should be a good name for our child? Gu Xingyin. He was thinking too far ahead. She coughed lightly. At present, the two of us, she wanted to say that they did not have an official status yet. Qing Yao immediately opened his mouth to interrupt her. I will immediately send a message back to the clan to prepare for the wedding. He had made up his mind. If Gu Sheng was still unwilling after this, he would snatch him away even if he had to use force. Who knew that Gu Xingyin would only glare? Where do you plan to hold the wedding? At my Phoenix clan's big wedding. Seeing that she was unhappy, Qing Yao quickly coaxed her. Okay, as long as you're happy. He suddenly stopped talking and looked at Gu Xingyin with sparkling eyes. What did you just say? Wedding? She actually agreed? Gu Xingyin secretly glared at him. I'm just doing it for the sake of the child. Before she could finish her sentence, a gentle kiss landed on the corner of her lips. She looked up and saw Qing Yao's smile. I know. I'm very happy. What kind of person was Huang Tian? If she was really unwilling, even if she had a child, she would not let herself suffer because of this. Qing Yao saw through it in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. As long as she was happy. No matter what, she was his now. Since she was his partner, he just had to pamper her. A month later, the Phoenix clan and the ancient Black Fox clan had a marriage alliance. When the news spread out, it crushed the hearts of countless youths. Not to mention their strength, just based on their looks alone, there were quite a number of people who secretly admired them. However, now that the male and female gods had been digested, those people could only give their blessings in tears. After 8 months, Gu Shengyin gave birth to a pair of little princesses of the Black Fox clan. It was rumored that this legendary couple often changed their residence. Many people in the Tianxian land said that they had seen this pair of peerless beauty somewhere. After their daughters had grown up, Gu Shengyin and Qin Yao started to enter a long period of solitary training. They wanted to break through that supreme stage. 500 years later, suddenly, 7 colored rays of light appeared above the Phoenix clan. Sweet rain fell from the sky and did not stop for 7 days. The entire Phoenix clan within a radius of 100 miles received the gift. Everyone said that the great sage of the Phoenix clan, Huang Tian, had finally stepped into the legendary stage. Another 500 years later, the Phoenix clan appeared again. From then on, no one in the Tianxian land had ever seen Huang Tian and his wife. Since then, the Phoenix clan had become the #1 clan in the Tianxian land. This world ends here. 5 chapters, I owe 1 chapter, I will make it up tomorrow at 7. Tomorrow I will write the last world of the main text. Good night, everyone. Chapter 2098. Gu Shengyin returned to the pure white space, and some kind of power flowed into her body. This was a gift from the mission world. She closed her eyes and carefully felt the power in her body. System. She smiled. I think I can go out now. After several attempts, she was now confident that the space-time crack could no longer hold her. A white light flashed on the system. No, host, you still need to complete the last mission world. Gu Shengyin frowned in confusion. What do you mean? The system replied, when the host goes there, you will know. Gu Shengyin still wanted to ask something, but the system replied, whatever the host wants to know, you can get the answer in this world. At this point, what else could Gu Shengyin say? The familiar feeling of dizziness surrounded her again. At the beginning of the chaos, this land was full of spiritual energy. Many innate spiritual creatures with great luck also got the opportunity to cultivate and transform into human form. At the foot of the Kunlun Mountains, a misty green light suddenly appeared on a patch of green grass. After the green light dissipated, a figure in green clothes stood up. She curiously looked at the world around her, and her clear eyes were full of curiosity. Who is she? Where was this? Her spiritual sense was just born in this world, and everything in this world was strange and new to her. She tried to walk outside, and along the way, she saw birds with beautiful feathers flying in the sky, and also saw a Taoist priest walking on the ground with a huge gourd. Hey, where did you come from? A clear voice called her. She stopped, turned around, and looked at a beautiful young man in a white robe in surprise. Are you calling me? She blinked her eyes. The young man in white nodded, and then frowned. Looking at your spiritual energy, you just transformed, right? Walking around like this, aren't you afraid of being targeted? She tilted her head and looked at the young man in white. Her sharp perception of the surroundings told her that this young man with a pure aura would not hurt her. The young man in white muttered to himself, and suddenly patted his head. Oh right, I haven't said, my name is Bai Zhe, what's your name? If she had a little common sense, she would know that the name Bai Zhe was not something that anyone could call him. The divine beast Bai Zhe was a natural auspicious beast. Even in the desolate realm, where spiritual energy was abundant, it could be considered an extremely noble birth. But she did not understand the meaning, and said with some confusion, she did not have a name. Bai Zhe almost instantly understood her difficulties. He looked at her and said, since you don't have a name, how about I call you Ain? Ain. She repeated the name twice. She felt that it was somewhat familiar, but she couldn't recall it. Thank you very much. I'll be called Ain from now on, she said happily. Seeing her so happy, Bai also smiled. You can be considered a natural spiritual root that transformed into a human. Although you have spiritual intelligence after transforming, and are no longer an ignorant thing, ordinary people will not have any ideas about you. But there are still some ruthless people, and it is very dangerous for you to be alone outside. Bai said to her. Hearing this, Ain fell silent. Chapter 2099. Although she was unfamiliar with the things around her, she was an innate spiritual creature after all. She could vaguely sense whether things were good or bad. In these days, she had seen many people who harbored ill intentions towards her. However, she was timid and cautious. As a plant, she was proficient in the ability to escape through the ground. She always managed to escape. Then what should I do? She said uneasily. Bai looked at the little girl in front of him. On her fair and delicate face, her good-looking eyebrows were tightly knitted and her face was puffed up. She seemed to be very distressed and hesitant. She looked so cute. He really wanted to pinch her face, cough. Bai struggled to control the thoughts in his heart and put on a serious face. Why don't you follow me for this period of time? I'll take you around this land and teach you some general knowledge and spells in an instant. I have to let you know how to protect yourself. Yin's eyes instantly lit up. She carefully tugged at Bai sleeve, who was not much taller than her. She revealed a big smile. Bai, you're so nice. Bai looked at the little girl's big sparkling eyes and felt his hands start to itch again. From this day onwards, Ain Zhao's follower followed behind Bai. It was night. The Sun Star Master closed his eyes. The Moon Star rose slowly into the sky. The primitive land was covered in darkness. Let's rest today. Bai found a good cave residence and cleaned it with a spell. Then he walked in with Ain. Ain trusted this new little friend very much. Whatever he said, she would do it. She gradually closed her eyes and allowed her divine sense to fall into a dream. In a trance, Ain felt that she had come to another place. No, she felt as if she had become something strange. She had no eyes and could not feel her own body. However, she could see everything in this world. Although it was called a world, from beginning to end, it was just an endless gray. What was this place? The surroundings were very oppressive. She tried to let her divine sense go further, hoping to find something else. But there was nothing. Her consciousness could spread to very, very, very far places. However, no matter how far she went, she saw the same scene. There was no distinction between up and down, left and right. The entire world was a chaotic gray gas. He didn't know how long he had been in this muddle-headed state. Ain didn't remember that she was Ain, and she didn't know where she was. Until one day, a different light suddenly appeared in this endless gray gas. Like an unsheathed sharp sword, it instantly split apart the misty darkness. The gray gas slowly separated, gradually expanding, and expanding again. Wherever the gray gas passed, a clear sky appeared at the top, with wisps of white clouds. Below them, thick soil appeared, as well as mountains and rivers. And the place where he was the area with the highest concentration of gray gas. She still didn't know what she was, because her whole body was surrounded by a thick gray gas. Time flowed by like an eternity. At first, Ain felt bored, but slowly she began to feel numb. Time no longer had any meaning to her. Until one day, the gray gas that had been surrounding his body began to slowly dissipate. Chapter 2100. Ain was pleasantly surprised. Because for such a long time, in this world, there was only the quiet sky and earth. The entire world was terrifyingly quiet, without a trace of vitality. She wanted to speak, she wanted to shout loudly. Seeing that the gray color slowly began to spread in all directions, Ain was very much looking forward to what she was about to see. Ain. A clear young man's voice woke her up. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Bai handsome face. Oh! She rubbed her eyes. Only then did she notice that the cave abode was already bright. Bai Zai glanced at her and clicked his tongue in wonder. You can really sleep, I called you several times, but you didn't hear. Ayin just sat there in a daze. Last night, she seemed to have had a dream? But what did she dream of? She kept feeling that the dream was very long, but when she thought about it carefully, she only felt that the dream was a blur. She could not remember what she dreamed of at all. What's wrong with you? Bai Zai saw her dazed look. He was a little worried. Ayin came back to her senses and said hesitantly, I seem to have had a dream, but I don't remember anything. Bai Zai heard this and said indifferently, I have an innate spirit body. After my cultivation is completed, it is very rare for things like dreams to appear. You can still dream, you must have just transformed not long ago. Your 3 souls and 7 spirits are not very stable. He glanced at Ayin and handed her something. Cultivate well in the future, it will naturally not happen again. Ayin took it and saw that it was a small white jade bottle. Inside it was a milky white liquid. This is a good thing I found with great difficulty at the foot of Mount Buzhou. It is most beneficial to the soul. He winked at Ayin. Ayin smiled gratefully. Without any doubt, she drank it in one gulp. Bai Zai saw that this little girl trusted him so much, he could not help but feel a little worried. She was so gullible. What if she met someone with bad intentions? What would she do? Ayin drank the liquid in the jade bottle in one gulp. In the end, she smacked her lips in appreciation. It's delicious. Bai Zai looked at the jade bottle with some heartache. He thought that there was only one place in the world that had good things. How could it not drink? Even for quasi-saints like the ancestral dragon and ancestral phoenix, they would keep it for themselves and use it at a critical moment. Who can drink it like water like you? However, who asked someone to be so willing to spoil you? Bai Zai was envious for a second. He pretended that nothing had happened and continued to walk south with Ayin. What he had said earlier was to take Ayin on a walk around the primitive world and teach her all kinds of spells while he was at it. Ayin's comprehension was very high. She almost never needed to repeat the things that Bai Zai taught her a second time. She could always remember it clearly. The 2 of them didn't walk very fast, and they encountered a few guys who had bad intentions in their hearts. However, Bai Zai was not someone to be trifled with. After killing people several times, the number of people who came to harass him decreased significantly. Until one day he met a tough nut to crack. The person who blocked their path was a man in a black and gold robe. He had a dignified appearance. 1,000 threads of karma grass, and you have cultivated into a human form. That's rare. He clicked his tongue in wonder and sized up Ayin. Ayin subconsciously hid behind Bai Zai. This person's gaze as if he was sizing up goods made her very uncomfortable. Chapter 2101. Moreover, out of her biological instincts, she felt a powerful aura from this man. This was not something she could fight against now. Creatures in the untainted land always sought advantages and avoided disadvantages. She was not this man's opponent, but his prey. Bai Zai stepped forward and stood in front of Ayin. He looked at the man in front of him with a bad expression, but he still bowed slightly to show his respect. Qilin's son. Ayin, who was standing behind him, opened her eyes wide when she heard this. In the past 2 days, Bai Zai had told her a lot about the powerful sage-to-be in the untainted land. In fact, the Qilin's son, the king of beasts of the demon clan, was a very powerful figure. It was said that he was the first Qilin in the world. Since his birth, he was designated as the king of beasts by the heavenly way. He was one of the 3 kings of the demon clan, along with the king of birds, Zhu Feng, and the king of aquatic clan, Zhu Long. Although Bai Zai was an innate divine beast and his strength was close to that of a sage-to-be, he was still a beast in nature. In other words, he had to bow to the Qilin's son. The Qilin's son stopped sizing Bai Zai up. He nodded slightly and said, "This is your subordinate?" He pointed to Ayin behind Bai Zai. It was also a normal thing for the strong to choose the weak to be their vassals. Ayin looked at Bai Zai blankly. Bai Zai shook his head and said, "Ayin is my friend." Friend? The Qilin's son chewed on the word and suddenly smiled. I've never heard that a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal would be friends with an innate spiritual being who is not even a primordial unity true immortal. Now, the strongest in the untainted land was the Sage-to-be. Below the Sage-to-be was the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, and below that was the primordial unity true immortal. What the Qilin Sun said was the reality of the untainted land. In this world, strength was everything. The weak had no right to speak in front of the strong. Naturally, it was impossible for them to become friends. Bai Zai's face was a little ugly. He suppressed his anger and said, I make friends based on fate. I don't look for opponents. What does it matter if you are strong or not? The Qilin Sun looked at the white-robed youth's glaring eyes and smiled maliciously. Unfortunately, I'm quite interested in this grass. If she is not your subordinate, it's none of your business if I take her by force, right? Bai Zai was furious. How can you be so domineering? The Qilin Sun laughed arrogantly. Did my reputation as the Qilin Sun only spread today? Bai Zai was silent. The Qilin Sun had never avoided the fact that he was born with a good background. He was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal when he was born, and his strength directly advanced to the Sage-to-be when he reached adulthood. Just because he was born into a good family, he received a good opportunity that others would never get in their lifetime. Naturally, his temperament was incomparably arrogant. Apart from a few that could catch his eye, the rest of the innate spirit objects like Ain, who had no background, could not even be considered as living beings in his eyes. They were just objects. In comparison, the Dragon Patriarchs and Phoenix Patriarchs, who had a similar status as him, had a much better reputation. Bai Zai silently protected Ain behind him, and his attitude was quite obvious. The Qilin child narrowed his eyes. Bai Zai, are you going against me? Bai Zai's mind raced. He knew that his strength was definitely not as good as the Qilin Sun's. Why not tell him the person behind the Qilin Sun so that the Qilin Sun would retreat? He immediately said, Qilin Sun, let me show you something. Think about it carefully. Ain, can you provoke him? Chapter 2102. Who was the Qilin Sun? Since birth, he had been arrogant and felt that he could fight against the heavens and the earth. If it wasn't for the fact that his own strength was too strong, with his arrogant attitude, he would have been blacklisted to death by countless people behind his back. There weren't many people who dared to go against him, especially Bai Zai, who was famous for his gentle temper. He actually pulled back his hand and waited calmly for Bai Zai to take out something. Bai Zai gritted his teeth and was about to say something to him when a voice suddenly came from not far away. Qilin Sun, are you making things difficult for others again? The voice was cold and arrogant. Just by listening to the voice, one could feel that it was a person who had been in a high position for a long time. Ain looked over curiously and saw a man and a woman coming together. When she saw the appearance of the man and woman clearly, she couldn't help but open her mouth slightly. Ever since she transformed, she had never seen such an outstanding existence. The person who spoke earlier was obviously the man in a golden robe standing on the left. His eyebrows were handsome, and his facial features were strong but not rough. His golden eyes seemed to contain infinite divine light, completely showing the charm of a mature man. The woman standing on his right was wearing a fiery red robe. Looking at her eyebrows, she was extremely gorgeous. Her eyebrows slanted to her temples, and the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. When she turned her gaze, she had the aura of looking down on the world. The two of them looked intimate and behaved intimately. It was obvious that they were a pair of Tao companions who had a good relationship. The Qilin Sun, who was standing in front of Bai Zai and Ain, changed his expression when he heard the man's voice. When he saw the two of them and their intimate posture, his expression became even more gloomy. Ain was curious about the identity of these two people. How could they not give the Qilin Sun any face? Bai Zai tugged at her sleeve. Bai Zai nodded at the elegant couple. Dragon Ancestor, Phoenix Ancestor. Ain suddenly realized that this pair of Tao companions were the Dragon Ancestor and Phoenix Ancestor that Bai Zai had mentioned. They were comparable to the Qilin Sun in terms of birth. The Qilin's son vomited when he saw the dragon ancestor. The three of them were born at the same time, and their bloodline strength was almost the same. However, the Qilin's son was naturally inferior to the dragon ancestor. He was not as handsome as the dragon ancestor. Although in the untainted land, most people paid attention to strength, and not many people cared about what you looked like. However, since both of you have the same background and are both demon kings, everyone can't help but compare the two of you. In particular, the Qilin's son was a narrow-minded person, so he naturally took it to heart. This was nothing. What really made the Qilin's son hostile to the dragon ancestor was another matter. He prided himself on his noble bloodline and had always wanted to find a Dao companion who was of the same background as him. As for the Phoenix ancestor, who was also a king of the demon race, she was the perfect candidate in the Qilin's son's eyes, whether it was her bloodline, appearance, or strength of a quasi-saint. However, Ancestor Phoenix chose Ancestor Dragon. She was already unhappy with him. Not only was he better looking than her, but he was also more popular with girls. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to tolerate it, let alone the narrow-minded Qilin's son. Therefore, under his repeated provocations in less than 200 years, the entire untainted land knew that the Qilin's son was not on good terms with the dragon ancestor and the Phoenix ancestor, who were also demon kings. God knew that the Qilin's son was just unhappy with the dragon ancestor, but who asked the dragon ancestor and the Phoenix ancestor to be Dao companions. Until now, Ancestor Phoenix still didn't know that the Qilin's son had once admired her. She only knew that he was eccentric and always liked to find trouble with his Dao companion. Chapter 2103. The Qilin's son didn't like the dragon ancestor, and the dragon ancestor wasn't someone who would swallow his anger. Naturally, he wouldn't be nice to him. The dragon ancestor happened to be free and didn't mind spending some time to ruin the Qilin's son's plan. Moreover, the dragon ancestor always looked down on the Qilin's son because of his superior birth. He didn't like ordinary creatures with low strength. In his opinion, having a good birth was an advantage, but it wasn't a reason to be conceited. When you grew up, you would naturally become a first-class sage to be. This was your opportunity. However, no one had the right to deny those creatures who were of ordinary birth but had been working hard to pursue the great Tao. Who knows what this world will look like 10,000 years later? Who knows what heights the creatures you looked down on back then will reach? It had to be said that with such temperaments, it would be strange if they could get along well. The Qilin's son gritted his teeth. What does what I do have to do with you? There were only a few people in the entire untainted land who could directly call the dragon ancestor by his name. The dragon ancestor glanced at Bai Zhe and Ayin and said slowly, I think Bai Zhe looks kind and this young friend is fated to meet. I want to have a good relationship with them. The Phoenix ancestor, who was standing beside him, couldn't help but laugh. Every time these two met, they would always meet. Of course, she was always on the side of her Dao partner. The dragon ancestor and the Qilin's son weren't born at the same time. In terms of order, the dragon ancestor was the elder, and the Qilin's son was the last. Speaking of which, when the three were young, they had a good relationship. The Phoenix ancestor had always treated the Qilin's son as a younger brother. Even now, when they had already become kings and their relationship was much more distant, she didn't have any ill feelings towards the Qilin's son. She said, Qilin's son, I've told you many times that day that the untainted land isn't the territory of the demon race. Don't make too many enemies. She sighed and said, it's fate to meet these two little friends. You should stop. By saying such words, she was standing on the side of her Dao companion. The Qilin's son's eyes were red with anger, but in the end, he just glared at the four creatures in front of him. He snorted and turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Seeing the Qilin's son, the devil incarnate, leave, Bai Zhe was relieved. He took Ayin to thank the dragon patriarchs and Phoenix patriarchs. The dragon ancestor shook his head. No need to thank me. If it was someone else today, I would have also interfered. Even so, Bai Zhe still thanked him seriously. No matter what, the dragon patriarchs and Phoenix patriarchs had indeed helped him. On the other hand, Ancestor Phoenix looked at Ain, who was behind Bai Zhe. She saw that Ain's features were beautiful and her eyes were lively. She couldn't help but like her. She thought for a moment and stretched out her right hand. With a flash of red light, a tail feather that was flickering with brilliant light appeared in her hand. She handed it to Ain. "This is my tail feather. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, just use it. With this item, not many people in the great desolate world would dare to touch you." Bai Zhe subconsciously felt that this item was too precious. Just as he was about to decline, Ain had already reached out to take it. "How beautiful!" She made no secret of her liking. After all, Ain had just transformed and was not proficient in the ways of the world. When she saw that someone was giving her something, and this Ancestor Phoenix looked both beautiful and kind, she naturally accepted it without any burden. "Thank you, Ancestor Phoenix," she said with a smile. Ancestor Phoenix smiled as well. When she saw Bai Zhe's expression, she understood. "I just like her innocence and liveliness. You don't have to think too much." Chapter 2104. Bai Zhe sighed secretly and thought that this could be considered the Phoenix Ancestor's good fortune. The Phoenix Ancestor did not know how much her small action today would help her in the future. On that day, after bidding farewell to the Dragon Ancestor and the Phoenix Ancestor, Ain continued to walk slowly on the ground with Bai Zhe. As time passed, she gained a clearer understanding of this world, and her strength gradually grew stronger. Bai Zhe was amazed by her comprehension ability more than once. One had to know that in this primordial world, the bloodline represented almost everything. For example, the Dragon Ancestor and the Phoenix Ancestor, the 3 pure ones and the 12 ancestors of the Witch clan were born from the primordial chaos chi after heaven and earth were created. In short, the higher one's starting point, the stronger one's comprehension ability, and the higher one could reach in the future. At least in Bai Zhe's knowledge, no ordinary primordial spirit root could cultivate to the golden immortal level. Not to mention such a terrifying comprehension ability. Was she really completely different from ordinary living beings? Bai Zhe thought to himself. He knew that there were some things that were not suitable for him to think about, so he suppressed this thought and did not think about it anymore. And Ain, on this night, once again fell into a dream. This feeling was very strange. After entering this dream, she forgot who she was. However, the content of the dream that she had completely forgotten when she was awake appeared in her mind with incomparable clarity at this moment. Ain watched the gray gas in front of her slowly dissipate, and then finally revealed the true appearance of the object hidden under it. It was a green lotus flower. Lotus? Ain was suspicious because of the words that suddenly appeared in her mind. How did she know that this was called a lotus? However, she did not think too much and just continued to watch. There were 5 lotus leaves under this lotus, and the texture was clear. They were all round and lustrous like jade pieces. There were 24 petals on it, and each petal was the same size and color. Looking down, Ain was surprised to see that she was actually completely floating in the air, and there was nothing at her roots to rely on. Or to put it bluntly, this green lotus was born from absorbing the gray gas. Chaos Green Lotus. She didn't know why, but these words suddenly appeared in her mind. So I'm called the Chaos Green Lotus. She thought with some novelty. Then, time passed quickly. Ain slowly watched as the gray gas dissipated between heaven and earth. The clear and floating gas transformed into 3 different-looking men holding treasures, while the turbid gas transformed into 12 strange-looking creatures. After that, more and more creatures slowly appeared between the heavens and the earth, and the entire world finally began to bustle with activity. At this moment, the gray aura no longer existed between heaven and earth, except for the space he was in. Sometimes, Ain was also a little envious. She wanted to go out and see those lively creatures, but she was still just a green lotus that could not speak or move. After an unknown period of time, the primal chaos green lotus suddenly shook violently one day. At the same time, the gray gas in this space suddenly rushed towards the green lotus. Ayin was also very excited. She inexplicably knew that this was the primal chaos green lotus that was about to transform. Chapter 2105. As the clear light scattered, the chaotic green lotus turned into a blurry green figure shrouded by the gray gas. Ayin's consciousness was suddenly separated at this moment. In the beginning, she had always felt that she was the chaotic green lotus, and everything that happened in this space was something she had personally experienced. However, the moment this figure appeared, she suddenly changed from an experienced person to a bystander. Ayin tried hard to open her eyes, trying to see the figure clearly. But she couldn't. His body was always shrouded in a layer of misty light, making it hard for people to see him clearly. Even so, the moment Ayin saw this figure, infinite joy rose in her mind, and she had an impulse to cry. The figure seemed to open his eyes. Then the entire space suddenly underwent an earth-shaking change. In the originally gray and empty space, like the outside world, a thick ground appeared, and a clear sky appeared above. Then, a huge lake appeared out of thin air, and tens of thousands of lotus flowers were born from the endless lake, competing to bloom. In the blink of an eye, this small world had completely changed. But Ayin felt that this person was not happy at all. He was the only one here, and there were no other creatures except the lotus flowers in the lake. She wanted to get close to him and talk to him. But she couldn't. There seemed to be some kind of power in the void, and nothing could get close to the figure in green. Ayin could only watch silently as he sat alone, and often sat for a long time. Later, he seemed to have discovered the untainted world outside this world. Ayin looked at the green-robed figure and stepped out without hesitation, entering the world with countless living beings. At that moment, Ayin, who had been watching him from the side, felt that he must be very happy. Because there were many more lotus flowers in this small world, and even the color was more gorgeous. If he was in a bad mood, it was normal for these countless lotus flowers to wither overnight. But then something terrible happened. As soon as the figure in green stepped into the untainted world, the surrounding space suddenly changed. Mountains collapsed, rivers flowed backward, and the earth sank. A huge crack appeared in the sky, and countless thick purple thunderbolts struck the entire earth. Whales were everywhere, and countless creatures in the untainted world were killed or injured. The figure in green looked blankly at the strange space cracks under the collapsed space, and finally closed his eyes. The next moment, his figure returned to the small world he was born in. At the same time, it was as if someone had pressed the pause button on the collapsing prehistoric world. The horrifying doomsday-like scenes disappeared. Ayin looked at the figure in green standing quietly for a long time, and then waved her sleeves. Everything seemed to go back in time, and the sunken earth was restored to flatness. The collapsed mountains were rebuilt, and the flowing river became gentle and gentle again. The sky became clear, and those creatures forgot what had happened before, and began their own things. From that day onwards, the green figure never took a single step out of this space. Ayin only felt that there was a fine and very uncomfortable citrus rising in his heart. She didn't know that this feeling was called heartache. Chapter 2106. Ayin. The familiar voice had a hint of worry. Ayin opened her eyes blankly and saw Bai Zhe with an anxious expression. Seeing that she had woken up, Bai Zhe breathed a sigh of relief. Did you have a bad dream? When he saw her face, she did not have a big expression, but she was locked up every day, which inexplicably made people feel a kind of sadness. Ayin sat in a daze. It was different from the last time when she woke up and did not remember anything. This time, she still vaguely remembered the figure in green in her mind. Inexplicably, Ayin, who had always talked to Bai Zhe about everything, subconsciously hid her dream. She shook her head. I don't remember. Bai Zhe did not doubt it. He just said that he was going to find something to concentrate the soul for Ayin. It was not a good thing to have nightmares often. In the next few days, Ayin was unexpectedly calm. She was curious about everything and loved to ask Bai Zhe all kinds of questions. Bai Zhe was not used to the sudden silence and asked several times. Was there really no problem with Ayin? Ayin shook her head. She was just thinking about the person in the dream. In terms of age, Ayin, who had transformed for less than a year, had never missed a person so desperately. She even looked forward to entering the dream again at night. However, many days had passed and she did not enter the dream again. Ayin, I calculated that we have to go to the valley in the west. Bai Zhe let go of his hand and said to Ayin. Ayin nodded. In this world, most of the golden immortals acted based on intuition and their own divination. There was nothing wrong with Bai Zhe's behavior. Only Bai Zhe felt a little strange. The result of his calculation was that no matter what, he and Ayin had to go to that area. However, even he himself could not calculate whether the result was good or bad. Bai Zhe suppressed this matter and did not tell Ayin. Since they had to go anyway, there was no need to let Ayin worry for nothing. The two of them rushed at full speed. In just 3 days they arrived at the valley. This was indeed a treasure land. In particular, it was worth mentioning that this was a treasure land that had not been discovered yet. Bai Zhe, you are so powerful, Ayin said with admiration. She now knew that Bai Zhe was not one of the most powerful people in the untainted land. However, because he was an auspicious beast, his luck was much stronger than ordinary living beings. In terms of treasure hunting, he could always find places that others could not. Bai Zhe didn't say anything. He just led Ayin and the other two and slowly searched the valley. Speaking of which, their luck was pretty good. They actually managed to find a place of spiritual milk. Bai Zhe looked at it and said, "It looks like it will take a few days for it to fully mature. Let's wait here for a few days." Ayin naturally had no objections. For the next 2 days, they stayed in the valley. That night, unexpectedly, the dream that had not been there for a long time actually appeared in Ayin's dream again. Ayin was still a bystander. She watched as the man stayed in that quiet little world. He had tried to bring living creatures from the untainted land into this micro-world. However, no matter if they were ordinary beasts or chaotic divine demons at the sage-to-be level, as long as they appeared in this micro-world, they could not escape the fate of exploding and dying. The green-robed man finally understood. In the end, he was different from all the living beings in this world. Chapter 2107. She still could not see the man's face clearly, but she knew very well that he was getting more and more unhappy. Because he was getting lonelier and lonelier, even though he was the most powerful and unique existence in the world. He could decide the life and death of any living creature, but he could not give himself freedom. His soul and strength were too powerful, even the most tolerant primeval world could not accommodate his physical body, let alone the other 3,000 worlds that were derived from it. And the small world he was in, the pressure of the spatial laws was too strong. So far, there had never been an existence strong enough to enter this space. Ayin watched this person sit in meditation for several years. Occasionally he would send out a wisp of his soul and incarnate into some small worlds in the lower realm to experience the life of an ordinary living creature. But those incarnations could not have memories, because once the power of his soul was leaked, it would bring great disaster to those small worlds. I want to accompany him. Such a thought suddenly popped up in Ayin's mind. For the first time, she ignored the powerful pressure that prevented her from getting close to the man in green, and tried her best to get closer to him, even closer. But it was very difficult. His body seemed to be filled with a huge repulsive force, making Ayin unable to move forward even half an inch. At this moment, the man in green seemed to have noticed something. He suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of Ayin's consciousness. Ayin did not know what kind of feeling she had in her heart at that moment. He saw me, he saw me. Her heart was jumping with joy. She hoped that the man in green could see her, then she could tell him that he was not alone, she had been watching him. However, at this moment, she felt her body suddenly tremble. Ayin opened her eyes instantly, only to feel that her body was being pulled by someone. She came back to her senses. Beside her was Bai Zhe with a cold expression. And standing opposite them was a black-robed man with a sinister appearance. The man's body was surrounded by an ominous black mist, and he looked at the two of them with a malicious gaze. Let me see, Divine Beast by Zay, Thousand Threads of Karma Grass, today's luck is not bad. The man stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips, his gaze locked on the two. Ain was still a little confused, but Bai Zay had already said coldly, Tao Tai, you and I have always minded our own business, what do you mean by this? What do you mean? Tao Tai laughed strangely. It's very simple. I'm hungry, and you guys are delicious food. Ain took a deep breath. Tao Tai? Was it that greedy and gluttonous beast? She only felt herself being pulled back by a force. Taking another look, she saw that Bai Zay and Tao Tai were already engaged in battle. Find a chance to leave by yourself later. These were the words that Bai Zay had whispered into her ear just now. Ain frowned and watched for a while. Logically speaking, she was not good at fighting, but now she could see at a glance that Bai Zay was not Tao Ye's opponent. Speaking of which, Bai Zay was an auspicious beast and had never been good at fighting. Against a fierce beast like Tao Tai, he would naturally be at a disadvantage. Ever since she transformed, Bai Zay had been protecting and teaching her. Now that he was in danger, how could she just stand by and watch? Didn't I tell you to leave? Bai Zay took a few steps back and covered his chest as he coughed twice. He raised his sleeve to wipe away the trace of blood at the side of his mouth. Ain supported him, took out a pill, and handed it to him without saying a word. Tao Tai sneered, It's good that you didn't leave, so I don't have to chase after you. I've eaten meat all my life. Today, I want to taste what this innate spirit plant tastes like. Chapter 2108. Ain watched helplessly as Bai Zay stood in front of him, blocking Tao Ye's attack for him. It seemed that the young man's thin body was powerless on the ground, and his snow-white chest had been stained with a dazzling red color. She only felt that there was a fire burning in her heart. However, Tao Ye still looked at Bai Zay on the ground with disdain, and then his malicious eyes fell on Ain. Is such a weak little plant worth your effort to protect? Tao Tai sneered and reached out to grab Ain. At this moment, Ain only felt that her thoughts were not her own. She just stared at Tao Tai and said in a cold tone, You deserve to die. When Tai heard this, it was as if he had heard a big joke. Look at what I just heard. I deserve to die? Just by you, Xiaocha? Ain felt that there was a fire burning in her body, and the heat was flowing through her limbs and bones. She urgently needed to find a place to vent it. She looked at Tao Tai on the opposite side. Very well, it's this guy. He deserves to die. Bai Zay sensed an unusual fluctuation. He raised his head in horror, but only had time to see a dazzling light. It hurts. Ain felt it in a daze. Then, after a while, her body suddenly felt relaxed. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself in the quiet small world again. The man in blue was still sitting quietly in the same place, as if no matter how much time had passed, he would always have this posture. But suddenly, Ain remembered a lot of things. She remembered who she was and what she had done. She was not the Thousand Threads of Karma Grass, Ain. She was Gu Shengyin. And that man, it was him. She almost wanted to get close to him with a desperate attitude. But she couldn't. There was always an invisible force surging around him, repelling her approach. After countless futile attempts, Gu Shengyin finally chose to give up and stayed quietly on one side, looking at him silently. She began to think about the meaning of coming to this place. Did he bring her here? Gu Shengyin thought so. After all, from her previous memories, it seemed that no one could enter this place except for him. But why does he seem to be unable to see me? Gu Shengyin was puzzled. She looked at the man she had been looking for countless reincarnations right in front of her, but she couldn't ask him anything. She could only silently recall everything she had seen. It turned out that he was the first living being in the primal chaos, the Chaos Green Lotus. It turned out that he had been living such a dull and lonely life. It turned out that the lovers of each world could not have memories because their souls could not be contained by the laws. Gu Shengyin learned a lot of things. Then she saw that one day the green-robed figure finally moved. He seemed to have made a decision. Gu Shengyin watched as that person transformed into his true form. The huge chaotic green lotus trembled slightly, and a lotus leaf and 2 lotus petals fell off. Gu Shengyin suddenly had a strange feeling when she saw her lover return to human form and looked down at the flower in her hand. Could it be? Chapter 2109. Gu Shengyin covered his mouth with his hand. She finally knew who she was, and what kind of relationship she had with him. She was his bone, his blood, and his flesh. She watched as the familiar face slowly appeared, but the woman's eyes never opened. Once she opened her eyes, she would be truly given life. The existence of life would definitely be rejected by this small world. With her current strength, if she stayed here, she would not be able to escape the fate of not even leaving a corpse behind. The man in green paused for a moment and made a decision. With a wave of his hands, he opened up a separate space somewhere in the distance. Then, he placed the figure in his arms inside. That was the pure white space where Gu Shengyin first woke up. Then he selected a system from the primordial chaos creatures. Gu Shengyin widened her eyes in shock. That was Bai Zhe. No wonder. Gu Shengyin suddenly understood. It was no wonder that Bai Zhe called him Ayin when he saw the 1,000 threads karma grass transform into a human form. So, that white-clothed youth was the system that had accompanied her for so many worlds. Thinking of Bai Zhe's warm and gentle smile, and then thinking of the guide system that was so calm that there were no ripples in its voice, Gu Shengyin could not help but laugh. So, the truth of all this was actually like this. Gu Shengyin knew what happened next. She woke up in that space without knowing anything, and was told that her existence was to complete the female lead's revenge mission. But in reality, it was just to let her live well in the female lead's place, and use her identity as the main character to receive the gifts of the heavenly axiom of the 3,000 small worlds. Every time she received a gift, her power would increase tremendously. One day, Gu Shengyin, who was born from the Chaos Lotus, would have enough strength to resist the pressure of the small worlds. Gu Shengyin also found out for the first time. So, every time, she thought that she was the only one who remembered these things. However, in a small world that no one knew about, that man had always been alone. He silently remembered every life that they had spent together. Just like her, he was waiting for the moment when they really met. Gu Shengyin suddenly opened her eyes. Bai Zhe, who was extremely nervous at the side, heaved a sigh of relief and quickly said, "You're finally awake." Gu Shengyin stood up and looked around. The cave they were in was already in a mess. There were bloodstains not far in front of them. It was obvious that there had been a fierce battle. She still remembered that it was Tao Tai who had made things difficult for her. Hearing her ask about this matter, Bai Zhe had a complicated expression on his face. He said, "At that time, the situation was critical. Suddenly, a powerful force erupted from your body and severely injured the Tao Tai. I saw that something was wrong with you, so I didn't chase after it." As he spoke, he suddenly stopped. Because Gu Shengyin was looking at him, her expression was completely different from the naive Ayin from before. Bai Zhe was vigilant in his heart, but his expression didn't change as he shouted, "Ayin." How could Gu Shengyin not see through his thoughts? She smiled gently, "System, long time no see." Bai Zhe's eyes suddenly widened. He reached out and pointed at Gu Shengyin. You. Gu Shengyin nodded, "I remember." After saying that, she waved her hands casually, and a dark space crack appeared beside the two of them. "I have something very important to do now, so I won't talk to you." Chapter 2110. Bai Zhe only had time to see a weary figure lying on the ground. That was the real 1,000 threads of karma grass. Gu Shengyin would be attached to this 1,000 threads of karma grass in this life because it was the most resilient spiritual root in the untainted land. When the man created her, he used 1,000 threads of karma grass that had not yet developed spiritual intelligence as a material. This time, he saved her from the situation where she was supposed to be eaten by Tao Tai. It could be considered as ending a karma. Gu Xingyin's divine soul had already stepped into the space-time crack. After she stepped into the crack, Gu Xingyin's body, which had been sleeping in the pure white space, disappeared instantly and merged with her divine soul. Now the space-time crack was no longer a threat to Gu Xingyin. Because of the dream during this period, she even found the small world where her lover was without any effort. Standing in this dark space, Gu Xingyin took a deep breath and was about to move. The space in front of her suddenly cracked automatically, revealing everything in the small world to her. It was him. Gu Xingyin's heart surged. Without saying anything, she walked in. Then she finally saw the appearance of her lover for the first time. Even though she had imagined his appearance countless times in her heart, and had piled all the best fantasies in the world on her lover. But at the moment when she really saw him, Gu Xingyin still held her breath. It was blasphemy to say that he was beautiful. His facial features seemed to be superfluous to him. Seeming to be puzzled by her pause, the man slightly tilted his head. With this slight tilt of his head, it was already a picture that people could not describe in their lifetime. His temperament was like the cold snow on the great snow mountain, but his eyes were like the gentle light in the clear sky in winter. Ayin. He called her name softly. Gu Xingyin abruptly woke up from the beautiful dreamlike scenery. She didn't care about the huge pressure on her body. Her body was light and agile, like a tired bird that had finally found its home. She threw herself into the open embrace without any reservation. His body was surrounded by a familiar aura, and even his soul let out a sigh of comfort and satisfaction. She originally belonged to him. They had crossed so many worlds and gone through so many reincarnations. He finally pulled her into his arms for real. I've been waiting for you for a long time. He sighed softly. Gu Xingyin hugged him tightly. She knew that those dreams were what her lover wanted her to see. Of course, his original intention was to tell her the reason for all this, but what she cared more about was the countless years of loneliness he had experienced. I know. I won't make you wait anymore. She would spend countless more tens of thousands of years to accompany him, until the end of the world, all living things died and reincarnated, and everything returned to chaos once again. The two quietly hugged each other in the lotus pond, until Gu Xingyin thought of an important matter. The man frowned slightly. I don't have a name. He only knew that his incarnation of the chaotic green lotus was an existence more powerful than the laws of heaven. No one could enter the small world he lived in, and he couldn't go out. Names didn't seem to mean anything to him. But it was different for Gu Xingyin. He was her lover. She couldn't call him the chaotic green lotus, could she? Hearing her meaning, the man lowered his eyes and thought for a moment, then said, Then I'll be called Jiyu. This was the name of his first incarnation, the name he used when he first met her. It was also the name he used when he and she first had feelings for each other that they couldn't let go of. For him, it was from that time that he, who had always been numb, began to have a glimmer of hope for the future. When he met her, it was his new life. Chapter 2111. Gu Xingyin accompanied Jiyu in that small world for many, many years. Time held no meaning to them. Gu Xingyin didn't find it difficult to stay by her lover's side, but Jiyu had always felt that these days were a form of torture for his lover. He used more patience and passion than before to research all sorts of methods to allow his clones to descend to the lower realms. Finally, after several chaos cycles, his strength rose to a whole new level. In other words, the suppression of the chaos laws on him grew weaker and weaker. Ayin. He smiled as he took Gu Xingyin's hand. I'll take you out to play. A smile appeared on Gu Xingyin's face. She had always seen the effort Jiyu had put in over the years. Although he had said more than once that he didn't find these days difficult to endure, he still felt that he owed her. If going to other worlds to play could make him a little happier, Gu Xingyin naturally had no objections. The two of them sealed most of their power, then held hands as they passed through this space. Gu Xingyin opened her eyes. She discovered that she was lying on her side on a soft couch. Beneath her were layers of soft fur, and the air was filled with a rich and luxurious incense. Gu Shengyin sat up and looked around. This was a large hall. The hall was dazzling and magnificent, and she waved her hand, and a water mirror appeared in front of her. The woman in the mirror was incomparably beautiful. Her snowy skin was so delicate that it could be broken with a single blow, her long, narrow eyes were seductive, and her ink-black hair cascaded down her body. When she looked down, she saw that the woman was only wearing a layer of bright red gauze, which was also extremely thin. In other words, with such a loose covering, the places that should be seen and shouldn't be seen were completely exposed. What a supreme beauty! If the beauty in front of her wasn't herself, Gu Shengyin thought, she would probably be in a much better mood. With a wave of her hand, the water mirror disappeared, and Gu Shengyin slowly searched through the woman's memories. Demon Emperor Bai Yin. She was the daughter of the previous Demon Emperor and Demon Empress. She possessed the bloodline of the heaven-devouring python and was the famous Lamia of the demon race. Due to the special cultivation method of the heaven-devouring python clan, before they reached adulthood, they were not allowed to have sexual intercourse. Otherwise, their foundation would be damaged, and their future would be bleak. Snakes were lustful by nature, and the heaven-devouring python clan needed another 500 years to reach adulthood. Bai Yin could be said to have been stifled. After much difficulty, she finally reached adulthood. The previous demon emperor saw that his daughter's talent was outstanding, and her strength was not inferior to his. Hence, he waved his hand and passed the position of demon sovereign to his daughter while he brought the demon empress out to play. They were so powerful that they were also known as demon emperors. What was the first thing Bai Yin did? That was to summon his subordinates and capture all the beautiful young masters within 100 miles. That's right, the Bai Yin demon emperor was such a slut. She liked men. However, it was a pity that her subordinates had caught a man they shouldn't have caught. The leader of the cultivation world, the youngest son of the White Heaven Immortal Sect Master, the most famous handsome man in the cultivation world, the cultivation genius He Qianglu. Logically speaking, with He Qianglu's cultivation at the peak of the Golden Core realm and close to the nascent soul stage, it was impossible for him to be captured by the demon race. However, He Qianglu was injured. Hence, He Qianglu was captured and brought to the Demon Emperor Palace. Then, before Bai Yin herself received the news, the White Heaven Immortal Sect had already received the news. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.